Hello everyone, welcome back to the World Conflict Monitor channel. Please subscribe to my channel. Today we are diving into a breaking and intense development that has shaken Eastern Europe to its core. A massive uprising in Belarus and a shocking twist where Vladimir Putin appears to be turning his back on one of his closest allies. Before we break down the details in depth, let me give you a quick summary of the story. Belarus, a country long considered firmly in Russia's sphere of influence, is witnessing waves of unrest. Protests have erupted across cities, calling for change and resistance against the entrenched government. At the same time, international reports suggest that Moscow, instead of stepping in with its usual forceful support, is quietly distancing itself. This has fueled speculation, tension, and even fear about what might happen next for Belarus, Russia, NATO, and the entire region. The exterior of this situation presents a country in turmoil, visibly marked by streets filled with demonstrators, banners raised high, and chants echoing through public squares. The images of people standing in defiance against authority paint a picture of resilience, desperation, and determination. From the outside, the Belarusian crisis looks like a classic struggle between an entrenched regime clinging to power and a society demanding freedom, accountability, and dignity. But the exterior story is also shaped by the absence of Russia's strong protective shadow. For decades, Moscow has been the ultimate safety net for Minsk, but this time, the exterior signals show hesitation, if not outright withdrawal. For Belarus, this changes everything, because the foundation of its survival has always depended on Russia's backing. The exterior lens therefore reveals both the strength of the people and the weakness of a government suddenly left more exposed than ever. Moving to the interior dimension of this unfolding crisis, the heart of Belarus tells a more complicated and fragile story. Inside government halls, uncertainty rules the day. Officials who once relied on direct Kremlin instructions and guarantees are now faced with silence or vague diplomatic statements. The short interior reality is that cracks are appearing within the state's machinery. Security forces still stand by the leadership, but morale is shaken, loyalty is tested, and fear of abandonment looms over them. For ordinary citizens, the interior world is one of both hope and fear. Hope that their protests may finally bring about change, and fear that the absence of Russia's control could lead to unpredictable chaos or violent suppression. Now, let's evaluate the performance of Belarus in this red alert conflict moment. For years, the government presented itself as a stable fortress of order under authoritarian control. Yet the performance on display today shows inefficiency, nervousness, and failure to contain the growing uprising. The performance of Russia, too, is telling. In previous crises, Moscow acted quickly, sending troops, financial aid, or strong political signals. This time, the performance is muted, almost as if the Kremlin is testing how far Belarus can stand on its own. This gap in performance is a strategic message. Perhaps Russia is recalibrating, perhaps it is unwilling to drain its already stretched resources, or perhaps it is rethinking Belarus' value in the larger geopolitical chessboard. The performance therefore is a story of weakness masked under control, both in Minsk and in Moscow. When we discuss safety features in this context, it becomes a metaphor for how nations protect themselves. Belarus has always counted Russia as its ultimate safety feature, a geopolitical airbag ready to deploy in times of crisis. Without that, the safety features of the state look fragile. NATO, on the other hand, is watching from the sidelines, its own safety features triggered in nearby Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia, where military readiness is visibly increased. For Belarusian citizens, the safety feature they rely on is their unity and numbers on the streets. For the regime, the safety net is dwindling. The situation reveals a stark contrast. People's solidarity grows as the state's guarantees collapse. Unique selling points of this crisis lie in its historic significance. Rarely has Belarus stood so visibly at the crossroads between two futures, one bound to Moscow's orbit and one drifting into a risky, independent path. The unique factor here is Putin's unusual silence and apparent turning away. For decades, Putin never allowed an ally to appear vulnerable, fearing that weakness in one part of his sphere could spread. Now, whether by design or necessity, he seems to be letting Belarus drift. This is unique because it signals a possible shift in Russian foreign policy. It also gives Europe, NATO, and the West a unique window to influence the trajectory of Belarus, something that seemed nearly impossible just months ago. In terms of price, the costs are enormous for everyone involved. For Belarus, the price is paid in uncertainty, possible violence, and economic strain. The government may lose legitimacy entirely, and with it, the ability to govern effectively. For Russia, the price of turning its back could be strategic influence slipping away in its own backyard. But the price of intervening would also be high, as Russia is already stretched thin by its commitments and conflicts elsewhere. For NATO and Europe, the price could come in the form of increased instability on their borders, the possibility of refugee waves, and the challenge of managing a fragile state next door. Every actor in this crisis is calculating the price of action versus inaction, and so far, inaction is the choice Russia has made. In conclusion, the massive uprising in Belarus and Putin's decision to step back mark a pivotal moment in Eurasian geopolitics. This is not just about one country's protests or one leader's decision, it is about the shifting balance of power in a region long defined by Moscow's grip. Belarus is showing the world both its vulnerability and its strength. The people are demanding change, the government is struggling to hold on, and Russia is stepping into uncharacteristic silence. The outcome remains uncertain, but the implications are profound. Will Belarus find a new path, or will it descend into deeper crisis? Will Russia return with force, or has Putin already decided Belarus is no longer worth the price? These are the questions shaping the future of Eastern Europe, and they will determine whether this red alert conflict becomes a new chapter of freedom or another story of collapse. This is the unfolding reality. Stay tuned, because the developments in Belarus are moving fast, and the story is far from over. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the World Conflict Monitor channel for more in-depth analysis of the world's most critical events.